All right. Hey, everybody. My guest today is a keynote speaker who travels the country speaking about addiction, recovery, and mental health. He himself is someone with lived experience from gambling harm. He's appeared on Dr. Phil, PBS NewsHour, NPR. He's been featured in the New York Times. I am so thrilled to have him on the Modern Meeting. Please welcome Saul Malek. Saul, welcome.
Adam, it's great to see you, and thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. I know that sometimes it doesn't always hit right, so
You know, I
perfect.
gotta I gotta give credit to you and Brian Hatch because when I was kind of researching you, I went back to that episode
Oh,
of his
okay.
podcast and I saw how he so I'm like, all right, that's how you say his name.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you. It's great to be here. I've been seeing your content a lot, and it's great to be now a part of it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Awesome. So I'm gonna ask you the first question I ask everybody. Do you remember, and I'm sure you do because it wasn't that long ago because you're so goddamn young. Uh, do you remember the first time where you realized that you may have a problem with gambling?
Yeah, I'd say the first time I realized that it was a problem. I would say what really stands out is when my parents urged me to go to GA, Gamblers Anonymous, which was not quite a full year into my sports betting career. So it was, right before my junior year of college in August of 2018. And the reason I say that's when I really noticed is because I would tell you I had an awareness previously before that I don't know if something was wrong, but that I needed to take certain actions to overcome some of the problems that gambling was causing. Like, I wouldn't define it as a problem, but I need to place another bet to get this money back,
Mm,
or I need to stay up late, or I need to find another bookie. Well, I guess at that time I didn't have another bookie, but I need to place the next bet. I need to do the next thing. I just didn't qualify that as sign of a gambling addiction growing.
sure. So when your parents suggested you go to GA, did you go?
I did. So the reason they made that suggestion, really almost I don't know if I'd say an ultimatum, but really an urge to go, was because they started to become involved because I had gotten to a point where I was in a hole that I didn't have the money to cover. And that's where they learned of the extent of the lying I'd been doing about my gambling.
Mm,
And I think that it was apparent to them that it wasn't just bad behavior on my part, but that I really couldn't stop the progression of it. To answer your question, though, I did go,
mm.
and I struggled with attendance and consistency in GA for nearly a full year after my first meeting. And I would say it's tricky because GA at times I felt was what I needed, but it just wasn't consistent. I'd get to a point where I needed money in a pinch, or a bookie was pressuring me, or I just had the compulsion come up and I didn't have some sort of spiritual defense, or I didn't rely on my support system. And so
Mm.
GA was this sort of fallback that I would go to in a bind. And then 3 weeks later, I'm right back to gambling again.
And so for that first year when you were in GA, you were still gambling.
Yeah, pretty much. I think the longest I went without gambling I had counted was like 52 days, I think was the number. It was like just shy of 2 months. And I don't know if do you know Jeff Wasserman?
Oh yeah.
So Jeff was really my main confidant then that I would turn to report on my gambling or my abstinence, because we had connected through like a Reddit circle. So
Oh wow.
those are like the early days, like 2018.
Yeah. So I have so many follow-up questions about this, but I want to head back to the beginning now and then we'll circle
Sure.
back. So take me back to your first bet.
Yeah, that's I guess I'll ask you, do you mean my first sports bet, like in the context of what we're discussing, or like any sort of lottery ticket or horse race or
Yeah,
anything as
no,
a kid?
I'd say like your first experience with gambling.
I'd say my very first experience with gambling that I can really honestly recall has to be lottery tickets as a kid, like scratch offs. And
Hmm.
don't get it wrong, like my parents weren't um, really encouraging that. It was more like, here's a harmless little thing that I get to do every once in a blue moon when I go with my mom to the grocery store. It's like, hey, yeah, you can have $1 and get a scratch off. And I
Sure.
remember occasionally on birthdays, I have a twin brother, so we would get a few scratch off tickets for like, a couple dollars in our birthday cards, and I would scratch the whole ticket smooth. Like I love the feeling of the surface, and I would make comments that I was one number away from $1 million, whereas my twin brother scratched it, and if he won a few dollars, who cares? And if he lost, he didn't really care. It was really my obsession, and I actually do remember now that my parents stopped with the scratch offs when they saw how much I enjoyed it as a little kid.
Mm.
I would say also I have good memories of going to the horse races with my dad occasionally. He would take me and my brother while my mom would catch up on chores every so often, and not regularly, but it was a treat to go because my dad is just a fan of horse racing, and we'd put in a few dollars, but the lady at the betting ticket register started to know me and my twin brother, would ask how are the boys, how's school. So I had very fond early memories. Gambling, it's like the scratch offs, it's like being the regular at the horse track. It's like we went on a cruise one summer with the family, and me and my twin brother, we were the bingo boys on the cruise ship because we were always there with my parents, and all these really positive early experiences.
Now you say they were positive. Looking back on it now, and I'm sure, you have a way better understanding of just addiction in general. Back then, would you consider your parents, were they somewhere on that spectrum, or were they doing it like responsibly?
Oh yeah, no, they definitely were not compulsive or anything. They're the type of people that would go to Vegas once every few years and
Oh, okay.
bring a set amount. It was, I think, more that they didn't see these things as early gambling or anything. It
Sure.
was, I guess, to a normal person, like, hey, it's as if we went to the movies. We go do the bingo. We go to the horse track, and and these weren't frequent occurrences. It's just it sticks with me in hindsight, thinking that I saw it as so different than a compulsive gambler would see
Oh,
it.
for sure. So now fast forward to when you started actually, progressing into like betting yourself, getting a bookie. Like what was the first stages of your gambling like?
So at the risk, I mean, I really try not to get into so much detail to like bore the audience, but I think there's a little more context that I think is necessary with the sports betting,
Mm,
which is to say that I did paid fantasy baseball, like a league with my friends from middle school through high school.
hmm.
And when I was in high school, there was like a casino app that was easy to access through Facebook with fake currency. So I was already starting to gamble on my iPad at school, at home, with no one knowing that I was doing that. And then also my senior year, I started daily fantasy sports, so putting in a little money to make a lineup for that day, which I would say is like a step closer to picking actual games. But to get to your question directly, the sports betting started my sophomore year of college. So this was 2017.
Hmm.
So it's that September. One of my buddies, he was my roommate from a sports broadcasting camp. I guess that's neither here nor there. But anyway, someone in my life reached out to me and texted and said, "Hey, I have a bookie. Like I'm doing some sports betting now." And I've wanted to go back and find that original text, but I blocked the guy and deleted all the messages because I didn't want to go back and ask him for another bookie. Which anyway, this guy reached out to me and asked if I wanted to start betting. And I was 19 years old, and I thought, you know, I don't have a job. I'm in college, but I looked at I just thought out of curiosity, let me see what games are on tonight, and found one I really liked and said, hey, yeah, I'll text the bookie and $10. So there was no thought as to, well, what comes next or what happens if I win? What happens if I lose? It was more just like spur of the moment. Yeah, yeah, sounds fun.
And so when you placed that first bet, do you remember do you remember if you won or you lost, and do you remember like what the feeling was after that?
Yeah, actually, so I think it was like the perfect storm for that first bet
Mm,
being the catalyst for wanting more. First, what was weird is you can see I'm just wearing a t-shirt, which I usually do. I was dressed super nice that day because I was the anchor for our TV show on my school's campus in college. And so I had to wear a blazer and a nice shirt, all that. So I already felt kind of cool,
Sure.
kind of a high from that.
Look good,
And
feel good.
yeah, exactly. I was like, man, I feel like a CEO or something. And so when I placed that bet, part of me already started. I really do remember. I already kind of started in this fantasy world, like, oh, this is so cool. I'm moving money and placing bets with some bookie over in New York or something. Like, I felt like some guy in a gang moving money across state lines, and like I'm making these calls from my phone. And when you asked if I won or lost, people sometimes ask if you had lost, would you have just stopped? And I really don't know because I won. And
Yeah.
I didn't just win, Adam. I mean, you're a sports guy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so you know, like teams usually don't score 8 runs in the second inning of a baseball game, right? Like it's pretty rare.
Is that what you
But
bet?
no, no, no. I didn't bet
Okay.
anything that unique, but that's what
Right.
happened in the game. Like I bet the
Okay.
Royals to beat the Blue Jays, and in the second inning, the
Oh,
Royals were already up 9-0.
so it's a
So
no
like my
doubter.
yeah, my bet was already pretty much over within 15 minutes, which was the worst thing I think that could have happened to me mentally, because then I just told myself, oh my God, like I'm such a boss. I'm such a boss at this. And I remember as soon as that TV broadcast ended that I was doing on campus, I like ran to the computer lab where I never studied. So this was the first time I ever ended up in the computer lab, and I was hunched over like looking at every single play. I wasn't streaming it. I was just game casting every single play till the final out, and I won 15-5. And when that bookie sent me that Venmo, it was like a whole other portal of something just opened up for me. Like felt like $1 million.
And it was literally $10.
Yeah, it was like 10, yeah, $10. Yeah.
Yeah, but something was unlocked.
I would say so. I think when I look back on my experiences in hindsight, a large motivator was just the feeling of being successful and feeling like I finally was someone. I went to a school that I felt was very competitive, like high school throughout, and I always felt a bit behind. I mean, I'm diagnosed ADHD. I'm very difficult for me to focus and sit still and keep up, and I would fall behind in classes, and my mom would have to organize my papers and all this. And then, having a twin brother who then he went off to a prestigious Ivy League school. He had everything figured out. I felt like I didn't really have my thing that put me on the map, and
Mm.
it seemed like this could be it. And I've shared before to some people that like the first person I really bragged to about having a string of early gambling wins was my twin brother, Gabe. And I
Mm.
wanted him to respect me and see that I was finally like really getting everything together.
And what did he say?
I remember he was a little skeptical. It's like
Sure.
be careful with this. That
Yeah.
gambling's risky. And my mom, when she saw the money that I started to deposit into my bank account, I got like the bookie would Venmo me, and then I'd move it from Venmo to my bank account, which my parents had access to. And my mom saw the money, and when I explained where it was from, she also cautioned me, and she reminded me that my dad's biological father had a gambling problem as well, and that destroyed his entire life. And really, that was just motivating to me that this is even more of a reason to prove everyone wrong and win all this money and show them later on that I knew what I was doing.
Wow. I mean, that's some next level spin zoning, because some people would be like, "Oh, it's in my blood," but
Right.
you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna double down." Like,
That's what I thought. I
pun
was like,
intended.
well, it almost felt like in a movie or something. Like, oh, and then 5 months later, they'll see this huge amount of money I won. They'll be like, oh, wow, we shouldn't have doubted you.
Mm.
You know?
So now, not to go on a tangent, but I am curious. Once you got into recovery, did you ever go back and try to learn about your grandfather and like what he struggled with?
I would say to an extent. I think my dad didn't really grow up with him, and my parents have told me he had all sorts of issues besides just gambling. The guy who had a lot of problems anyway. So
Okay.
I think that it's been helpful to at least understand a little more of my wiring. I mean,
Sure,
there's some family history of like OCD, certain things like that as well on that side. So some of it explains it, and I think to your point, maybe provide some comfort to know that I'm not totally just screwed up on my like there's some explanation, but
for
also
sure.
I'm cautious not to use things like that as a crutch to justify um, the behaviors.
Definitely. So well said. I can remember, towards the end of my gambling, I would always do that. I would always play that card. Well, it's in my blood. My mom's side of the family, a lot of compulsive gamblers, and I have no choice. This is who I am. Like, so I definitely hear where you're coming from there. Um, so step one of the 12 steps, right? Like talks about admitting that our life had become unmanageable. Talk about how when did it start becoming unmanageable? Like when did it start kind of spiraling out of control?
See, that's an interesting one because I would say probably like very early, and I say early, I mean within a few 3 months of my gambling, and I say that because like I remember it was still 2017 when I was starting to bet on tennis, or like my first date with my girlfriend. I was walking in the park at night with her, which is a weird first date to be like alone in a park like that, but that's what we were doing. And I had a live bet on a Japanese baseball game then. And
Yeah.
so I was checking that at that time. So I would say it started early. I just felt that that was a trade-off, trading the time away from my girlfriend, away from being present in order to get more of what I wanted, which was that thrill, that high, that action. So it was really almost like a barter, like an exchange where I was willing to give up paying attention in class. I was willing to give up time with my girlfriend because it meant more gambling. And so I don't really, even though in hindsight that's a problem, I didn't see it as unmanageable just yet. I would say probably around the time where I went back to, or right before I went to GA for the first time, because what transpired that led me to GA was that I was in debt to a bookie with money I didn't have.
Mm.
So I'd say that had immediate consequence to where I was anxious about finding the money. I was anxious about talking to my parents about it. I still had this desire to get my money back. So I would say that showed some unmanageability there. And I would say when I returned to school my junior year, when I started to go to GA and didn't really work the program very well, I'd say that my junior year of college was really the worst that I ever had. And it presented itself in skipping classes and failing tests in school. It was unmanageable in that when I finally did want to do other things like go play basketball or go out with my girlfriend, I really was unable to without gambling being a part of it in some way. Of course, my sleeping was impacted. I would not sleep through the night very well because I would wake up at random hours to check what game was going on because there was always there was something going on in a different country because of the time change. And I think also the trust was a big one too. And starting to see more on LinkedIn too about family and friends of people with a gambling problem. And I know my parents were really impacted as well as my brother, as well as my grandparents and friends. And that was a lot of the lying I was doing to get money when things would become really dire, or just hiding the extent of it.
Mm. So when you're walking through the park with your girlfriend, or when you're waking up in the middle of the night to see if you can still bet Korean baseball, is there anything in your brain at that moment and that you're like, I shouldn't be doing this? Or were you just kind of like did you have the blinders on at that point?
No, I had more of the latter right there. That I was just so locked in, and I don't know how much, if all of that is just the fact that I'm a gambler. I wonder if some of that is just due to my makeup anyway, like just
Hmm.
being so obsessive, being so um, in kind of a fantastical world. I think it just seemed so normal to me.
Sure.
Like, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, so I know for me, I'm still trying to figure out the why, right? Like, there, I may never know, but I think for me it was a combination of ego and a combination of knowing that over the course of the 20 years that I gambled, that I was down so much that I was just always trying to, if not get back to even, like make that one big hit and then I would stop.
Right.
Were those things that you thought of, or was it more of like a competition with yourself? Like I want to be proven right. Like what were some of the factors that kept you going?
I'd say what you just mentioned was a part of it. I feel like it fluctuated depending on what my present situation was. If I were
Mm.
riding a hot streak, I would say, "Oh, I'm going to keep riding this, get back to even, then I can stop and I'll be good and nothing it'll be as if nothing happened, it all canceled out." If I was losing, it'd be like, "Oh, I need to make this back. Like right now, I need to be able to get back to even." And even in between that, I know there were times of just what else am I going to do in life? It's just like, oh, I have this urge to gamble to where there wasn't really a lot of thought behind it. I went back to some of my old messages with people that I'd talked to from like Reddit forums and other people struggling with addiction too. And I saw in those messages, I would send things like, hey, I just purposely lost a bunch of money on roulette, purposely betting on just one number to hit over and over and over again, knowing it's going to not win. So that way I'll at least exhaust all my credit so that I can just be done gambling for now.
Holy cow.
And so there wasn't a lot of logic along the way, but it's weird to me because some of that stuff of like this fantasy world, I felt like was an integral part of some of the best parts of my childhood. Like my brother and I, when we'd go to my grandparents' house and they had a little pool there, and we'd make up pretend baseball teams with pretend player names and play like water baseball. And, some of that stuff I translated to my gambling where I'd be betting on basketball in a country where you couldn't even stream the game, and I loved that because then I would just do the same thing. I would imagine in my head, oh, what's this player? What do they look like? Imagine them missing a three from the corner and playing the game film in my head. So when people talk about gambling just to win and lose, I'm like, for me, it was like this whole world that I was playing with in my head.
That is so interesting. That's awesome. I mean, not awesome, but it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. Um, so just to have the full context, how many years from when you started gambling consistently until your abstinent date?
Yeah, that's something that's wild to me is that my first bet was September of 2017, and then I give my abstinence date as July 18th, 2019.
Okay.
Which even that date, real quick aside,
Yeah.
really don't want to derail us here, but I
No,
say
you're good.
July 18th. Yeah, I say that date because even though the last day I placed any money on a bet that year was July 12th, for the next few days I would go on to my account with the bookie with zero credit and then just type in numbers to bet. Like I would type 1,000 and click on a random team to bet because I was hoping the website would glitch and like give me the bet anyway. And so
Wow.
even though it didn't work, I was like, those
Yeah.
days I tried to gamble, I should count as gambling. So that's
I
why
I
my date is what it
I
is.
absolutely love that. I love that you didn't. Yeah, that's very, very admirable. That's awesome. So
Oh, thanks.
speaking of was your gambling for the most part in secret, or were you did people kind of know that, oh yeah, that's Saul, he's the sports better?
I think both actually are somehow true. I think people, especially friends around me, knew that that's what I was doing. I mean, there was a guy I used to bet with a lot at my college, so he was also someone that, I mean, he knew because we were betting against each other. But
Oh wow, that's old school. So just you and him with a handshake bet?
well, yeah, but the thing about that was so screwed up is I think this also shows just how invested I was into just the action of it. Is that like that year, let's say the Royals were terrible and the Astros were the best team in the league in like 2018. He would say, "Okay, I got Astros, you got Royals," and I'd say, "Okay, well then give me the actual odds." And he'd say things like, Nah, man, I think the Royals are due this weekend, like,
Oh my God.
And then I
I
was
do not
scrolling
I do
through
not like
social
him. I'm gonna
media.
go on record say I do not like him.
No, no, we're cool now, but I would take those crazy bets with him just so that I could get a bet down and just tell myself, oh, yeah, they might be due tonight. And
Jesus.
but I think
Um,
people knew some of it, but the extent was never really fully revealed because I would tell my parents if I was in a real rough patch or something, hey, I went back and I need this, but it wouldn't be the full picture. It would be like only a little money to pay one guy, but then I can still leave the other guy blocked because over the time I was gambling, I was accumulating various bookies. Like I would get a line of credit, lose, block someone, find someone else, block them, then, get some
wow.
money, pay one, and then but I thought I was smart, Adam. I thought if I had 10 different bookies and I'm placing the same exact bet in all 10 different sports books, and if it wins, then I'll win 10 times what I'd
Oh
win
my
naturally.
God.
So
That's I love the logic of a compulsive gambler. I love it. Was it just sports betting, or did you ever dabble in the casinos or anything else?
I did dabble in, I was doing some online baccarat. I didn't know how to play, but I thought it was fun. Some online roulette. And I did also, continue down the rabbit hole of scratch off lottery
Mm.
tickets.
And so, as a college student, where the hell are you getting all this money?
Well, I didn't first. Okay, so with the sports betting, I didn't need it.
Oh, right, you're going
Okay,
old school. Your bookie's
well,
giving you a line of credit.
that's so. Okay, initially I had money because my parents had given me some money of like, hey, if you want to go out for meals, or if you need to have some money just in case of an emergency. It was money set aside like you really shouldn't be using a lot because you're on a meal plan and we buy your textbooks and we pay your tuition. But I had some money laying around that I was able to use, and then like I'd said, my parents bailed me out that first time, and then they didn't when I first went to GA, and so then I was betting just with bookies who would give credit without any money up front.
Mm.
And then when the debt got really severe and bookies were coming after me, I did start to work to be able to pay it. So it wasn't totally unrealistic, I guess. Like I was working as a waiter in San Antonio while I was gambling, and then I was working with like the Jewish student group doing some stuff, and I think I also got paid for my sports broadcasting. So I had different sources of income that would cover me, but I did also take out one of those really predatory Native American loans online, or like they charge you 300% interest, and there were times where my parents were the ones that would come to my assistance, and then like if someone at my school, if I owed money to the guy at my school or something, like they would, be panicked about that and help me out and just say, well, you'll pay us later, sort of thing. Because they were hopeful that would take care of it.
Sure. And as someone who has had my parents bailed me out more times than I can count. When that happened, when your parents are bailing you out, is there a part of you that's like, suckers, like I'm out of the woods?
Oh, completely. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, got away with this. Or, oh man, it's like I thought there was like a thing when you play Call of Duty where it's like dead man's hand, where you're almost dead, and then there's like some potion or there's something that
Hmm.
brings you back to life. One of those things. It's interesting you say that you had that same sort of
For sure.
experience. Yeah.
And what about, you know, did it start? Because once it happened to me a few times, it's awful to admit it, but whenever I got myself in a corner and it's like, okay, do I cut my losses or do I make one more big bet? And if I make this bet, I'm absolutely fucked. I know in the back of my mind, at the end of the day, my parents are my safety net. And so I would do it. And it's awful because they listen to they're going to hear this. They know this, but it's the truth. Like, and I always went that final step to absolutely put myself in the biggest hole, knowing that I could go to them and they would bail me out. Did you have that same
I
mentality?
don't know that I ever thought of it in that structured of a way. I think it was more like, oh, when I get to that point, I'll figure it out. Just like
Sure.
I need to place this bet, and then whatever happens, I'm just gonna scramble and find another way. There were also I didn't even mention that too. It's not I didn't lose. I lost pretty much almost every week, but I did have a few wins that kept me in the game, or that I had a winning week that I could then use some of the money. So I didn't always lose, I think is the
For
other
sure.
point.
Yeah,
But
we win once in a
hmm,
while.
yeah, there were, it's just so weird to me now that certain events stick out. Like there was some Aussie rules football game that I was back home in Houston for, and whatever team, maybe like the Sydney Swans or one of those teams, had this amazing comeback. And it's just like in hindsight, gosh, some of those moments where I thought I'd solved the riddle, it's
Sure.
like within a week I would lose. And sort of another side tangent, but there were so many lines of faulty logic that carried me my whole gambling career, such as women's tennis. Anyone can break a serve in women's tennis because they serve slower. So you can take any underdog you want in women's tennis, and they'll be able to break serve, or always take the Yankees in every single game because they're an evil like dynasty machine and they can never lose. So you can just automatically take them and be fine, or take any bet for like minus 800 on some crazy thing because they're guaranteed to win if their odds are that boosted.
Oh God. So take me into this first year of GA. I think it's super interesting because here's the thing, right? It's like when I meet people like you who have all of this success and recovery, and you say that you gambled for a couple years and that, you essentially, how old are you?
I'm 27, 28 in January.
So you've been clean. I hate using that word, but you've been free of a bet since like 22, 23.
Yeah, I guess. No, actually 21 because it was 2019. I'm born in 98.
Oh
So
wow. Okay. So you have
like six
six
years
years.
over.
Amazing. So the the odds of that is like, you know, it ain't good. Like first of all, going in that young, going in having just gotten a taste of it, right? Like 2 years. Like so before we get to the recovery, tell me about that first year though. Like what was it like in that first year? Like what clicked for you? What didn't click for you? And you know, do you remember the moment in GA where it did click, or was it something like that wasn't even a part of GA? I know that was
I
like
would s-
five questions within a
No, no, that
question,
that
but
made sense. That made complete sense. So first of all, the GA, I had the privilege of getting a taste of different GA rooms because my college was in San Antonio, Texas, and then I went to Austin a few times because my grandma on my dad's side lives there. So I went to a few meetings in Austin, and then my family being in Houston, go to a few meetings there. So I got to experience, a kind of a diverse array of GA meetings and meet different people. I'd say my first year in GA was such a struggle because I don't know that I saw the seriousness of it. Even when I would hit low points along the way, there was always this kind of fighter in me that I'll bounce back, or that, I'll figure it out. There was a time, just to kind of drive this point home, there was an old man in San Antonio, GA, whose actual birthday was like June 11th, and his abstinence date was June 1st. And I said, honestly, like, well, why didn't you just wait to stop so you could have your same birthday as your GA date? And he pretty much got mad and was like, you don't understand. Clearly, you don't understand this addiction, right? That you can't
mm,
just pick, oh, I'm just going to stop 10 days later, make it line up with my birthday, and then be good. So I think
right.
there was a lot of misinformation that I had, but I would go to meetings pretty often.
Mm-hmm.
um Say my experience being the youngest guy in the room was that I don't think I was taken as seriously because I was also so naive and immature. But I felt that the rooms that I was in really looked after me. And I think that's why I was comfortable going back, was that I felt like, well, at least being here is somewhat enjoyable. I at least have people to talk to. I at least have people that are looking out for me. And when you said what finally kind of clicked was, there was a guy I met in Houston who became my sponsor, and he was the one that I turned to when my girlfriend dumped me. I know hope I'm making contextual sense here. So I stopped gambling in July of 2019. It was August 14th, so like the next month, 2019, where my girlfriend dumped me over the phone. And I usually tell the students at the schools where I go that it was because of my gambling, but it was actually because well, it was that, but also I was seeing this other girl that I met while I was a waiter to make the money to pay off my gambling debts. That's what ultimately led to the relationship ending. And I say all that to say, in my desperation, I asked my GA sponsor from Houston, if I go 6 months without gambling, will you reach out to this girl on my behalf, tell her I've changed and that she should get back with me again? And that's when he told me, like, no, he's not going to do that. And also, I'm selfish. I'm not willing to work. And if I don't get serious, that I'm in a lot deeper than I even realize. And I don't have much longer to live. And he said, go to the meeting tomorrow, call this person, just kind of do the next thing. And for me, it was just kind of like, okay, either I give this a real effort or like I'm done.
Yeah, and I mean, in your defense, of course you're going to think that way. You're friggin' 21 years old. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like, I think that made perfect sense. Like, as a 21-year-old brain, like, hey, if I get to 6 months, like, can you reach out to her? Like, yeah, I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I thought it
I
made
totally
sense.
get that.
Yeah.
Couple
Yeah.
follow ups. Austin, did you go to the Austin on Tuesday night?
Whenever I was gonna say, are we allowed to like name people that were there, or does that defeat
Yeah. Well, I mean,
anonymity? You know?
that's true. But someone who's been on the podcast, she's great, Leah. Tuesday nights, Leah. And then I've also
I
mentioned Rocky.
Okay,
Rocky.
Rocky is who I was gonna name.
You know
Yeah.
Rocky?
Yeah, yeah, Rocky and
Dude,
John G. Yeah.
I don't remember John G, but so my first meeting, February 8th, 2022, Tuesday night, Austin, Texas.
How'd you end up for work, or why were you there?
It's a long story. But yeah, like
Oh, okay.
my my last 10 years of gambling, I lived in 6 different cities, 20 different jobs. I was bouncing around. I was all over the place. I ended up in
I want
Austin,
to talk to you
Texas.
more also because I want to hear more. I mean, I know I'm your guest for maybe off camera we'll talk
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
interested in hearing.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. But dude, Rocky, that's amazing. So that's amazing. But yeah, he saved my life. Rocky saved my life. I went to Tuesday night Austin for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then I moved back up here to the Northeast. But
Oh, okay.
and
Rocky's
then
awesome.
oh, Rocky's the best. Shout out to Rocky. Hope you don't care that we're mentioning you.
Too late now.
um, a couple of I'm writing down all these questions as you're talking. Oh, so during that first year, when you're in GA but you're gambling, are you like telling people that you're gambling? Are you the guy who's gotten like 5 welcome pins because you kept relapsing, or like how did that work as far as
No,
like?
that also was one of those like depending on the situation. There were times I would lie about my date,
Mm,
but then I would it's like, oh, when I'm finally at a point where I'm actually sick of this, then I'll admit that I was lying and then get everyone clapping and, oh, it's okay. Oh, we care about you. And then, it was like when it was convenient for me, I would
mm,
come back and reset my date. And, but that's one of the sick things too about the whole experience was, even being a deadbeat, for lack of a better word, there was some thrill from that too, of like,
ooh,
who can
yeah.
I get to feel sorry for me? Or I even felt like I haven't even seen this movie, but this is what I imagine the movie is like, Saving Private Ryan, where I'm some like hero in a war or something and like crawling out of a battle scene because of my latest gambling defeat.
You need to
It
see
was
that
like
movie.
whatever.
It's a great movie.
Is
You
it a
need
good
to see
movie?
it. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Just like whatever. There was this guy. There was this old timer who went to San Antonio meetings a few times, and something he said stuck with me. He was talking about the worst thing isn't to have people hate you during your gambling or love you. It's to have people become indifferent toward you, to become
Wow,
forgotten. And I was thinking that
love that.
explains my situation entirely. Is that that's the worst thing I could imagine is people just moving on from me.
Ooh, that's amazing. Your debts. Uh,
Yeah.
are you debt free right now?
Not fully, but almost. I probably have $2,500 left.
Awesome.
I
And
accumulated like 20 grand in debt.
wow, okay. And was it
Not that it's great or not great. It's
no?
just what is what it
I mean,
is.
I wanted to ask you like just to give an idea of numbers, but I'm glad you said it. So now was most of that debt bookies or was it some banks and loans and stuff?
No, it was mainly bookies. I have to say, I think I do owe my parents a few thousand, and I asked them, and I asked them a few times, and their response was that me being healthy and on the right path is that they don't need that. I mean, not in a pompous way, just they don't
No.
need to
Amen.
see that money. So,
No, that's awesome. So you finally, it sounds like it was. So basically, it was kind of your girlfriend that was the
it
catalyst,
I think
or
I'm
your
sorry to interrupt
ex-girlfriend.
you, but it's
No,
just
go.
because I usually don't even bring this important context into it. I feel like the whole issue with her and this other girl that I was trying to sort out the whole thing with actually was the perfect thing to give me a little bit of a buffer from that gambling obsession. I don't know if
Sure.
that's physics or chemistry, how that actually works, but I feel like that little pause there where I was so focused on that gave me a little relief from just thinking about gambling to where once I got a little momentum, then I was in a much better spot.
No, listen, I tell people all the time, like pretty much the only time in my 20 years where I didn't gamble was when I was in a like a committed relationship.
Oh,
Didn't
yeah.
didn't happen often, but yeah, like so for me, yeah, it's when I had other things to do and I was
Right.
happy, right? Um, so once GA starts clicking, was that your basic form of recovery? Like, what did your path of recovery look like as we head towards, you eventually deciding you want to go share your story and become a speaker? Like, once you started getting some successful recovery, what was that? Was it sponsor? Was it literature? Was it a higher power? Like, what was your recipe for success?
It was, I would say, mainly built on my sponsor, but he's always said, principles before personalities, really my sponsor's message.
Hmm.
I felt that I found such a good sponsor that it's been committed to helping me understand and really apply the 12 steps of GA. And that includes having a personal higher power for me that
Yeah,
I think has really allowed me to grow up and mature and just make better decisions and choices. I know early on I was on this weird sort of pink cloud feeling that people talk about in sobriety and abstinence and recovery, where I almost would say I was felt better than everyone. That, oh, if someone spoke badly about someone else, I would feel like some sort of policeman, like, oh no, you can't speak badly about someone, or oh, I'm anything someone would say, I would analyze in my head, oh, is that principled or not principled? And I was
sure.
kind of
Yeah,
like the police of everyone's behavior, and I feel like I have been able to mellow out when I was so much less rigid about my life. COVID was a weird time though, because okay, so GA, it's really been GA for a little bit. I was seeing a gambling therapist who was helpful in getting me to talk to the bookies and come up with a payment plan. So he helped more on the financial side with all of that. And then my sponsor in GA has been really what I've used the whole time. But COVID was tough being isolated because I was getting so obsessive and fearful. Like I had this thought of, well, I could just search the word slots on Google and then click something and then click a slot machine. And I could do that all within like 8 seconds. And I could throw my whole life away in 8 seconds. And then I just have these images of, oh, I'm doing it. Oh, I can't be around computers. And for a while, I would like, if I had any loose change, I would throw coins away because I was afraid I would flip a coin. Like in GA, it says
wow.
you can't flip a coin and bet on it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
coins were starting to give me a lot of anxiety. And so for some of COVID, it was really getting to me
For
mentally
sure. So
with
it
all these
wasn't necessarily urges to gamble. It was more just the anxiety of
like
like
these fears that I could.
accidentally
Like,
gambling. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
so interesting. No, it's interesting because one of my main recurring dreams since I've been in recovery, I don't dream about gambling. I dream about deciding whether to gamble or not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Damn.
And I think about like, if I just do this, can I just lie, right? Can I like
Interesting.
can I go into these rooms if I only make one bet, I can just go into the rooms, right? And just say, so like that's my and that oh yeah, just thinking about it, saying it out
Mm.
loud, it gives me
Yeah, I
like,
was gonna say, wow,
oh
that's
yeah,
that's
it's
that's
gross.
deep.
Um, but so take us to, when does Saul say, you know what? I want to start speaking to the masses. I want to start telling my story. Like, where did you find the courage for that as someone who, kind of did something similar? And I know what motivated me and what inspired me. What inspired you?
I was gonna say, should I ask you, or is this my turn to answer?
No, I mean, I'll just tell you, like, I was, if apologies to the modern meeting listeners who have heard me say this 1,000 times, but, I was like a year and a half into recovery, and I'm just like, where is everybody? Like, why am I the
Oh.
youngest person in the room? Like, why gambling is exploding on the outside, yet there's no young people here. There's barely any women. Like, and I was just so grateful, right? Like, I was
Mm.
given this new life. I was given the answers to the test that I was failing for 20 years. I want to go tell everybody about this yellow book and this red book. And so I'm like, I know, like, we're supposed to be anonymous, and I know I'm supposed. No, that's not how the world is now. Gambling is evolving. Gambling's
Mm.
different. So
True,
so I want to
true.
bring it. I want to bring it to the masses, and that's kind of. And then, like, I told that to a few people in GA, and they were like, "Easy, easy, guy. You can't be step 1, 2, 12 in this thing. Like, let's wait a little bit." So I waited like another year probably, and then almost a year ago now, I launched it.
I was gonna say, I love that you said that. Gambling is evolving, so why shouldn't recovery?
Oh, I mean, that's yeah,
It's well said. But I do want to answer it because you asked me a question, so I do want to answer it.
yeah.
It really was almost happenstance, sort of like a God incidence, coincidence sort of thing, where when I graduated college in 2020, like COVID times, and my plan was to go to graduate school to become a therapist, to study addiction and be an addiction therapist. And I got pretty far along in that program and ultimately had some problems with focus and meeting deadlines and things. And it didn't come to pass. So didn't end up getting the grad degree, but along the way, I just had this idea that I'm studying to be an addiction counselor, and I'm seeing gambling addiction or gambling being advertised all over. This was maybe like 2022, and I wanted to go back and talk to the kids at my high school just because I was seeing it everywhere, and I thought, these St. John's kids are definitely using their parents' money and gambling already.
Hmm.
So I got to go in and do an assembly there, and then it was actually someone from GA who I'd talked to who said, "Why don't you look into doing this as like a professional endeavor?" And I thought that's really sounds cool, so I sent some cold emails to the schools in the same conference as me, and one of them brought me in, and went well, and then I decided I should make a website to actually make this kind of legitimate, and I think also we talked about Jeff a little bit. Jeff was the reason I was able to speak to the New York Times very early on because he's has his position on the Delaware Council on Problem Gambling, or I don't know if that's the exact name, whatever his organization is, and they looked for a younger gambler for their story, so he reached out to me, and I just thought I don't really have a digital footprint. I don't really have much of a filter or anything. And, I thought it was a fair issue to start talking about. So I just didn't see any downside. And when my parents had voiced the concerns they did about speaking publicly about being addicted to gambling and what that could mean for job prospects and things, my counter argument was we live in a time where people are celebrating therapy and mental health and wellness. And so, if anything, this is something that people will celebrate and be happy about because I'm not talking about actively going and robbing a bank to pay a bookie. I'm saying this is in the past. Here's what I'm doing now. And so I don't think it's something to shy away from. So
Yeah,
I think that's really how it got going.
that's awesome. So, what was your initial message to these schools, and has it evolved over time?
I think it has evolved. I think initially it was very centrally focused just on my own story, just on my own experience, and lacking some of the depth of like, well, what do you actually take away from this? What do you actually apply? How do you apply this to your own reality as a student? I would say now my story is there, and that's really like the point of having someone share their story and not just reading a Wikipedia article on gambling addiction. But the way I share it is where it is more clear in how the progression escalates. Here's more of the emotion behind it. Here's more of why I was using gambling to try to get ahead in life. And I bring in a lot more stories just from the media, from what I see out there, from what I see at other schools. And I have like some, very practical tips. Here's how you could see you have a problem. Here's how you help a friend. Here's a little bit of the brain science behind it. So I try to make it a more comprehensive thing. And the last thing I'll say about that is I also feel I do a much better job now of keeping the audience engaged and actively participating, which I think is absolutely essential to ask the audience questions or have someone volunteer and come up. And we're going to do an exercise in the math behind gambling that lets someone talk about their favorite sports team and who would they like for this game. And,
Love that.
that way they have a role in the presentation too, because part of my misunderstanding, I think, at first is that my experience is a lot more universal than it really is. But like, even when I told you about imagining like basketball players shooting in the corner and like, you're like, that doesn't apply to me. Like that, you just made that
Mhm.
up. So I think my
Yeah.
experiences are more unique than at first I just assumed, oh, everyone's going to get what I'm talking about, but
Right, right.
not necessarily.
So, and this is, I think, like the $1 million question right now in October 2025 in this country is if we have an 18, 19, 20, 21 year old who identifies that they have a problem, who wants help, but then goes to a GA meeting and isn't lucky like you and I and gets a good meeting. They get some meeting with 5 75-year-old guys in a church basement, and then they say it's not for them, and they keep going out. What do you think? Where are you telling these young people to go?
It's tricky because my thought would be to go online. I mean, there are plenty of meetings that are GA-esque that are across the world, and statistically, one of them is bound to be a success. But I also I wouldn't shy away from going to real therapy too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, GA is so helpful to me, but I don't think that people should avoid professional help. I think it's important to leverage that, but I also think this is just my experience. With what I've learned through GA, it all makes so much sense to me, and I think a lot of it is in the material itself and less about the members of a meeting. Granted, it is a lot easier to get it if the people around you are explaining it properly and actually practicing it, but
Yeah, and,
I
and
think
and
the
once
principles
again,
are the same.
and once again, I'm not knocking GA. GA saved my life, but at the time, I was 38 years old. I had some life experience under me, and I was gambling for 20 years. If I'm 18 or 20 or even 24 and I'm immature and I'm basically an idiot and I and I and I gambled my ass off, like it's a the odds of that young person connecting in the same way that I, a 38-year-old, connected, it's just not likely. So it's like, speaking of your experience, in your experience where you've traveled the country, you've talked to a bunch of young people, have you heard any success stories of the success stories that you're hearing with these young people? What pathways are they taking into recovery?
I would say a lot of the success stories that I've had with kids that have talked to me after these presentations don't seem to be kids that were already addicted. It's like I hear a lot of stories of I noticed this was becoming a problem and I've gotten away from it,
I
or
love
I could
that.
see where this will be a problem. And I think that's the most common type of success story. There were a few kids at a school in Texas that I went to who came up after and said something like, we both of us, we used to bet on soccer late at night to make our money back on teams we didn't know, and like we decided that it's not it's not worth it. So
Yeah.
that's more of the message. I would say that I don't hear a lot of, oh, I've been addicted for a while and I've been going to a meeting or seeing a therapist. That's not quite the level yet.
Yeah. Well, no, and what do they say that like, prevention is the best form of treatment, or is that what they say? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've heard that. I've
But
heard
but
that.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense. Do you still go to GA?
I do. I was there today in Nashville. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And my last question, and it's a question that people ask me all the time, and I am not doing a good job at it. Hopefully, you are. Um, what do you do for your own recovery? Right, like you're probably thinking about recovery 24/7 with your job and all the speaking that you do. Do you make time for your own recovery, and what do you do?
I would say one of the big things I do, I love walking, go on a lot
Mm,
of walks, and I think that's really the most exercise I get. I would say something else is spending time with. I have a different girlfriend that I've been dating for like over 5 years. Not the same one, but making myself available to her, and I feel like I've been doing a really good job of being accountable, helping clean up, helping with dinner, helping make the bed, things like that. That really are part of my responsibility and accountability. But I would say really doing these presentations, it's not cliche to me anymore. Is that really does help me because I think, gosh, I just talked to these kids about this experience, and if I were to go back and gamble again, it would really not only destroy my professional life, but also the trust that these people had in me.
yeah, I mean, it's one thing to for me to be doing a podcast, but there's got to be something subconsciously where if that disease ever tried to creep up into you, it's like every speech you've ever given is now null and void.
Right,
So it's
right.
like, I mean, I guess maybe it's not, but it kind of is.
No, I mean,
So, but
yeah,
that's like
yeah.
that's a great tool, I think, to have in your tool belt. You know what I mean? I think it's awesome. Um, so I said it was your last question, but I got one more question. So what do you just say? Forget about young people, old people, just, anyone right now who's out there struggling, you know, what is your piece of advice to them? Like what is the first step? What do you think, based on your experience, based on all the people that you've talked to, if someone identifies that they have a problem, like what's their first step?
I'd say the first step is to, I don't know how practical this sounds to someone struggling that much, but to stop thinking, stop trying to think your way to a solution to the problem. Because for me, that's what I love so much about GA is that here is just a list of things to do it, and don't bother questioning it. Because in my addiction, I struggled with trying to find out answers, or I'm going to think it, I'm going to have more willpower. So that's what I would tell someone struggling is don't try to solve this in your thinking.
Mm, I love that. I love that. That's a good place to end. Saul, you know, uh, this has been great. I hope to continue collaborating with you in the future.
Totally. Yeah, I love
Where
this.
can people find you?
Oh yeah, thank you. You can go. I'm on Instagram, Saul Malek speaking, and then I also have saulmalek.com, which needs a little updating here very soon, but that's where you can find me there. And I'm on LinkedIn. I try to post pretty often on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Well, Saul Malik, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you coming on the Modern Meeting, and definitely have you back on again at some point.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Adam. Enjoyed
All right.
talking with you.
Take care, bud. All right.
All
We'll
right.
be
See ya.
we'll be right back.